Hello, it's Lorraine here, and welcome to this discussion on Soul Light Solutions. In this discussion, I will be talking a little bit about why I feel Ukraine will succeed in its battle against Russia, and why exactly that I believe that will occur. Now, as a medium, I am always seeking to have an understanding from Spirit on things that are occurring. And throughout my life, I have studied extensively theology, religions. In particular, I've studied the Kabbalah and the Tree of Life, and I have applied this to my connection with Spirit. And I always seek to have an understanding of events that are occurring, both in the personal level and on global level too. And I apply this understanding that I have to what is occurring on a global levels, and how to be able to have a deeper spiritual understanding with what's occurring. And so I always look at things with a spiritual lens, and understanding that everything does occur for a reason, and that there is a divine plan that is always running in the background as to what is occurring with everything. So either on a personal level or a global level, there is a divine plan. And so when I speak also, I will be applying things in terms of my understanding of the quantum field. So I always put a little bit of a scientific twist on things too, to be able to give a deeper understanding. And so all of my perspectives will have this overlay to them with the study of theology, with the Tree of Life, with science, and with my own intuitive understandings. So why do I feel that Ukraine will triumph at this time? Well, for one, they currently have a Jewish leader. And this Jewish leader, Volodymyr Zelensky, who has really shown himself to be a very formidable man at this time of crisis. But why is this significant in what I perceive to be how the outcome will be for Ukraine? So the greatest reason why I feel that they will be successful, and I'm applying this all to my intuitive understanding of what's occurring right now, and I really do feel that we are on the brink of the Third World War. And as such a great period of time of development of human consciousness, there is a tremendous spiritual force that is occurring right now in the world, a tremendous spiritual force. And this force will bring tremendous awareness and spiritual growth. So the fact that Zelensky is Jewish, it's been long understood that the Jews are the chosen people. They are chosen by God as His special people. And this also was really important to me because I have studied the Kabbalah, the mystical teachings of the Jews, for a very long time. And the reason why this term applies, that they're chosen people, is that it's believed that they've been chosen by God to worship Him, and to, most importantly, fulfill the mission of proclaiming His truth among all the nations of the world. So we must remember that at this particular time in this conflict, that they are being led by a Jew, and his mission is to proclaim the truth among all the nations of the world. When you stop and think about that as to what is occurring right now, we can see the archetypal energy forming around that. So we have a man that is leading his people, and through this particular battle, there will be truths that are proclaimed that are meant for all nations of the world. So this is the divine way of having truth understood, of having truth delivered to the people. And this is a reoccurring theme in Jewish literature, and it's expressed in many different ways throughout the scripture. It speaks about the Lord choosing the Jews to be a people of their own possession out of all the nations that are on the face of the earth. So it's very significant to me that Ukraine is being led by a Jew at this time. And that also really starts to demonstrate the spiritual forces that are at work here. There's tremendous spiritual forces at work. This is archetypal energy that is occurring. So in Jewish literature, this idea of them being the chosen people has a very profound effect upon them, and they have a very special relationship because of that with their relationship with God. It's a very special relationship between the Jews and God because of this covenant or agreement of sorts between God and Israel. And so again, bringing that to that Zelensky is a Jew leading the Ukraine. And as such, being God's chosen people that are tasked with a greater spiritual responsibility. So let's just reflect upon that also, because this too brings me to, again, the situation that's going on in Ukraine is that there's a greater spiritual responsibility that's occurring here. And so we always, from our human perspective, we look at things from a very 3D human mind way of viewing at things. But if we were to take it from looking at it with our spiritual mind, we will see that there's actually a lot more that's occurring here right now. And that by God's chosen people, with having these great spiritual responsibilities, they will demand more. This is about sort of them demanding more, these spiritual standards to all of the nations. So this is becoming an awakening for the rest of the world. Okay, so we're thinking about it in that respect, that this is an awakening for the rest of the world. Now, whenever we have forces that are acting, divine forces that are acting upon us, there's always going to be opposing forces. And this is just the nature of the universe, really. I mean, we look at everything in terms of vibration, but there's always going to be forces that oppose anything in nature. We can look at that from a really scientific point of view too. If we look at energy, that objects going in motion forward, that there's going to be forces against it that want to sort of keep it in place. Okay, so we apply that to our understanding of what forces are working upon us here in on the physical. There's always these opposing forces that are going to want to keep us in place. These are natural laws. They're natural laws that are being applied in our universe. It's just that we don't understand them as humans. We don't understand these forces that are taking place because our human mind has not been able to sort of really grasp that. We just see things in the 3D. And because the Jews are God's chosen people, they have this task to be able to, they have this task to put out this revelation to all of the world about these spiritual responsibilities. And so we can look at that in terms of democracy, perhaps, or freedom. So these are spiritual responsibilities. These are states of being that everyone should be able to experience. Now, so we're talking about freedom. We're talking about really certain states of being that that are meant for each person to be able to experience. It's just we're seeing this really illustrated right now in the battle of Ukraine against Russia. So we can look at Ukraine being led by a chosen individual and them seeking this spiritual freedom, okay, this spiritual tenant, something that has been, it's a proclamation of truth. So something that God has really proclaimed that each individual should be able to have. And so this is part of the ascension of mankind. This is part of the ascension of the human consciousness. We're starting to understand what exactly is part of the divine plan, is part of the divine vision for us here on Earth. And so we're to look further at Russia being that opposing force, the one force that wants to impede this spiritual growth. And in particular, because it's occurring with one individual at the helm, Vladimir Putin, I look at his figure as the archetypal Antichrist. Putin is the Antichrist. And how is it that I mean that? So the Antichrist is the paradox opposite of Christ. So one that would stand in opposition to these spiritual views. And that really is a very simplistic way of looking at it. That an Antichrist is one that opposes the spiritual views that of Christ. And if we've already established that the Jews are the chosen people and being led by God, and that they are tasked with bringing these spiritual truths to the world and upholding these spiritual truths to the world, that someone that stands in opposition to that, someone that stands in opposition to that truth is the Antichrist. And just going on a completely intuitive discussion about that with Vladimir Putin, looking at him, I know that he is a very cold and calculating individual, and that he is cut off from his spiritual mind. He is not working with his spiritual mind. He's working with different forces. You can see that very cold, deadened look in his eyes. And yes, I understand that he was in the KGB and that is part of that, but there's something more there. And again, we think about everything in our universe having forces applied to it. And when I see pictures of Putin, I'm very, very aware of the darker energies around him. And it's not just coming from the way that his eyes look, but there are darker forces around him. Anyone that has the power of clairvoyance or intuition, just looking at him, you get a sense that you are dealing with someone that is dealing with something different. So darker consciousness, lower consciousness. And by lower consciousness, I do not mean that he's not intelligent. He is quite intelligent. But his intelligence, the way that his mind operates, is operating on a different level of consciousness. He works with sort of an energetic mindset of keeping things in an order that is very controlling, it's authoritarian. And so we look at this again from an energetic point of view. This would be the energy of sort of keeping things in place, the energy of keeping certain paradigms, certain constructs, keeping them maintained. And so we talk about the Antichrist. He is also understood to be an earthly tyrant and a trickster. And if we cannot attribute those particular characteristics to Putin, then I don't know who we could attribute that to. He is indeed a tyrant, and he is indeed a trickster. And so I do believe that Putin is the Antichrist, and we can see how this particular war threatens really all of the world. We can understand that this would threaten all of the world. And I do feel that it will evolve to having all of the nations come together. Already we see them coming together, but it's going to be even more so. And this is all about heralding in a new energy, a new vision, a new time. We really are coming to, when we talk about end times, we have this understanding, or this scripture would talk about the end of the world. But it's not the end of the world per se, it's the end of the world as we know it. And it's also not lost on me that this particular war has come just on the heels of a global pandemic. And so during the pandemic, when we have this opportunity to reflect upon our worth, to reflect upon what we value, to reflect upon our human nature, reflect upon our soul, and perhaps really have a deeper connection with the things that are important to us. And now here's the test. This war is the test of what do we hold important to ourselves. What does mankind, where's their level of consciousness? What is important? And we're talking about our values. And we can't talk about values without talking about spiritual truths. And that's really what it comes down to, is that we are having the divine plan emanated down upon us, and it's manifesting through these particular events. So this is God's divine plan, and it's for that reason that I know that the Ukrainian people will be victorious. Now, sadly, in any battle there are martyrs, and I believe also that the Ukrainian people are martyrs for the world at this time, and it's through their sacrifice, although they may not see themselves as martyrs. People get the wrong impression of what martyrdom is all about, but there are always martyrs in this world, people that sacrifice their lives to be able to bring through a higher understanding, a higher spiritual truth. And so the Ukrainian people are in many ways these martyrs for the world, and their very purpose is to be able to bring to us a higher state of consciousness or a higher understanding. I really do feel that the Allies are going to get involved greater here in this particular situation. I do believe that NATO is going to take a step more firmly, and I do believe that things may escalate further. Having said that, I know that what will happen with Putin is that I do believe that he will come down from within, that there's going to be someone within his inner circle that takes him down. His own, when I think about the archetypal energies at work here, he will not, this will be the end of him. He will not succeed past this period of time. This is the end of Putin's error. And I do feel that he's going to be taken down by his own inner circle. I do believe that. So whether this be an uprising of the Russian people or someone within his own inner circle that takes him down, but I see him, I'm able to just sort of visualize him and him being really raging right now, really full on in his tyrannical rage. And I know that he wishes to levy a great deal of harm to this area. And I do see him being taken down. So I feel that there's going to be pressures within the Russian people that will end his reign, end Putin's era. I feel too that if the NATO allies want to end this sooner, that they must look for a way to make Putin feel that he has won. That's the only way, is to trick a trickster into making him feel that he has somehow won. And when I talk about things happening globally, I want to really reinforce too that the powers of our prayer are immense. And to keep on praying for peace, to keep on praying to raise up the Iraqians, the civilians, to keep on praying for a just outcome, and to pray for it to come about quickly, and to pray for light and healing to be upon the world globally, because we must understand too that although we're seeing this illustrated in one particular part of the world, this is also happening individually too. This is the conflict that's occurring within our own spiritual nature and the evolution of mankind. So we are seeing a spiritual evolution, and it's through that it causes all of this sort of turbulence, and that turbulence creates these, what we see manifest in 3D world. Okay, so pray for peace for yourself also, because in healing ourselves we do absolutely heal the world. And I wish you all the love and the light and peace in your heart. And I thank you very much for listening. I wish you many blessings, and may you walk with spirit. Once again, this is Lorraine and Soul Light Solutions. Bye for now.